Hey everyone, Felix from Nintendo Life here, and today I'm here to share with you 20 plus tips and tricks for Mario Kart World. There'll be everything from some very beginner friendly tips to some a bit more advanced, but without further ado, let's just race right into it. So let's start before the race even starts, selecting a character and card, because this will have a very big impact on your playing experience. The characters are sectioned into different weight classes, so Wario is a lot heavier than Toad, meaning that he's a lot faster, but he also doesn't have as good acceleration. Of course, all the vehicles also have their individual stats, so some cards are just more quick than others. But this will of course also be affected by the character you've chosen, so Wario and Toad have vastly different stats on this same bike. And you can see the stats while you're at the vehicle select screen by pressing Y to see the details. Alright, the race is about to start. How do you get that boost that you see so many other players do? Well, you have to time when you press your accelerate button, being A. The right time to do it is when the 2 is fully drawn in. The second it is that, you just go for it. You hold it down until go and then you'll boost right out of the gates. It's important you don't do it too early before the 2 is fully drawn in, because then you'll spin out. If you do it a little bit too late, you will still get a boost. Depending on how late you actually did it, the smaller the boost will be though. Now this might be obvious to many, but if you're just starting out with the game, you might not even know what drifting is. Drifting is used to take really sharp turns and generate boosts while you're at it. The way you do this is hold the right analog trigger while you're at a turn. This will make your character jump up and, well, start drifting. Drifting is an art form in itself, but once you start practicing, it will soon feel incredibly natural to pull off. Not only can you do the turns a lot tighter, you also charge up boost. The longer you drift, the better the boost will be, and you'll know which boost you'll get depending on the color of the sparks. It'll start off blue, then turn into orange, and finally turn into this rainbow colored boost. And now that we're at it with drifting, it's actually a lot quicker to charge up the boost if you hold the stick inwards instead of outwards. What I mean here is that, as you can see, I'm drifting to the left. Now, if I take my joystick and face it to the right for a less tight turn, you will see that the drift charges up a lot slower. Now, I understand that sometimes you will need to hold it to the other side, because otherwise you might drift too tightly and then fall off the map. But when you're doing this, if possible, try and flick the stick back and forth, because then at least you're getting a little bit of inwards drift boost, which is quicker than just doing it outwards. Practice makes perfect with this, and if you can really nail it down, it will up your game tenfold. One really important thing in this game is slipstreaming. It's the art of driving right behind another character to get quite a significant boost. Now, in the first 5 or so seconds of the race, you can't do this, but be ready, because in the start, well, a lot of the characters are tightly jumbled together, and this is a really good way to climb up the ranks. Especially since this game has so many straight roads, there's not always a lot of opportunity to overtake players by just taking the tighter line. Slipstreaming has been in previous games, but I've never felt it be this essential as it is in Mario Kart World, so don't forget to do this. So in previous Mario Kart games, if you drive into lava, well, you would just get respawned. And that also does happen in this game, unless you use some items. If you use, for example, a mushroom, you can just drive right over the lava. And this also applies to other terrains that would normally get you out of bounds if you stay too long in it, for example, the mud or the purple poison. A new feature in Mario Kart World is the ability to trick. Instead of drifting to either side, simply hold down the drift button, the right analog trigger, to charge up a trick. While this can be useful to make use of the new features of driving on the walls and grinding on the rails, don't do this on straight paths. You might think that yes, it's quicker to just charge up these jumps because you get a speed boost, but you do slow down when you're charging up a trick. As you can see here, it's a lot quicker to just drive straight, as boring as that sounds. So it's slower to use tricks when you're just driving on straight ground. But one thing that's actually a lot faster is that if you see a rail, well, press the drift button to make a trick. Keep doing this and you will just rack up the boosts, and as you can see in this example, that is a lot quicker. Alright, time to talk about some items. Bullet Bill has been nerfed quite a lot and is not the best item in the game, far from it. That price goes now to the golden mushroom. Now, if you've played Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, you might have always thought, not another golden mushroom. Sure, you could get lots of speed, but it always felt like you couldn't truly get back into the pack unless you got a bullet bill or a shock. But in this game, you have the opportunity to do some mega shortcuts because you're driving on straight roads, and if there's a big turn, well, you can just skip that whole road. One important tip is never go past these yellow fences. If you do so, well, Lucky 2 will pick you up. And in this game, if you get picked up by Lucky 2, well, you'll lose all your items in the process. It's not just the mushrooms, the star that can cut over giant pieces of land without slowing down. The Boo and Mega Mushroom don't lose speed of road. The Boo, although it's see-through, you can't drive through obstacle cars. And the Mega Mushroom, well, the best tip I can give for you, if you have that, try and crush as many of your opponents as possible, because you lose all momentum when you get driven over, and it's horrible if you're on the receiving end of it. There's nothing more satisfying than just driving over a bunch of your opponents. You can throw your items back and forth, but did you know you can throw your item a lot further ahead if you're in the air? For example, look here. That item went so far ahead, where normally when you throw it ahead, it looks a little something like this. And staying on using your items, in this game you can aim where you throw them. Well, most of them at least. Bananas you can only throw back and forth. Using the right analog stick, as you can see here, I am changing the view of where I'm looking. And depending on where you are looking, that is where you throw the item. Now, it is quite hard to use the right analog stick while also holding down A, so this is especially useful if you have a Switch 2 Pro controller or the charging grip, which does have the GL and GR buttons on the back. Assign one of the buttons to A, and then you can just freely use the right analog stick while also still controlling your speed manually. So let's say your opponent is kind of behind you. Instead of just throwing it backwards and not hitting them, you can align your camera and then snipe. It can be really clutch in the right situations. And what also can be good in the right situations is always having an item to defend yourself. This can be a shell, a banana peel, and even a bomb. In the previous game, when you had a bomb behind you and it got hit, well, you would explode, but not in this game. It will simply explode right behind you. You might have noticed when you're driving past that there's these giant question blocks. If you can drive under it and jump up, well, you'll get some free coins. And another way to get some free coins is to jump on the obstacle cars. Not only will you get a boost, but also, well, free coins. But why would you want coins in this game? Well, first of all, they give you a little tiny boost when you collect them. And second of all, they make you faster. If you have 20 coins, it makes you around 5% quicker. And how do I know this? Well, Shortcat, a Mario Kart YouTuber, has a fantastic video going over exactly how coins work in this game. I wholeheartedly recommend you go check that out. There's a link to the video down in the description below. One very important thing if you really want to up your game is to go into time trials and race against ghost data. Now, at default, there will only be one ghost data from Nintendo themselves, but you can actually go in and find the world record holder. Now, you can race against them, be prepared to get absolutely thrashed, but what I'd recommend is just watching over the ghost data. This way you can see what the most optimal routes are in each track, and maybe even learn some cool techniques that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. I did this quite extensively on the first track of the game, Mario Bros. Circuit. Seriously, don't sleep on ghost data if you want to be good at this game. So, you are in first place, and the dreaded blue shell is upon you. Well, normally your only saving grace is the super horn, which is the only item that can destroy the blue shell. But if you've managed to get into first place and you have a mushroom, you can also dodge it using that. What you need to do is wait until the blue shell is actually facing down, is just about to hit you, and then you use the mushroom. It can be a little bit tricky to pull off, but when you do so, it's the most satisfying thing in all of Mario Kart. But if you're playing in single player, there's also another method to avoiding the blue shell, which is quite funny. So this game introduces something called Rewind. What it does is that, similar to Enforcer, you will just go backwards in time. Now in the trailers, this was showcased to be used, for example, when you miss a shortcut, but you can also use it to dodge the blue shell entirely. Now when you use rewind, all the other racers will still drive at the normal speed, so it has a little bit of a disadvantage, but still, avoiding a blue shell just like that, well, it doesn't get a lot better. And this even works for red shells too. And speaking about rewind, that is one thing that when you're driving around in the overworld can be really useful for completing certain difficult P-switch missions and collecting the hard-to-reach Peach medallions. Even 30 plus hours into this game, I forget that rewind is even a thing in this game. So just keep that in mind because it can be really useful in the overworld when you're racing offline, and even in time trials. Sure, the time will still progress as you use it, but let's say there's a part where you're trying to practice a specific jump, not having to restart the run every single time and reach the certain point that you're practicing while using rewind can be a real time saver. And there you have it. Those were 20 plus tips and tricks for Mario Kart World. Did you get any use of them, and do you have some tips and tricks yourself? Well, let us know down in the comments below. That was everything from us. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one. Felix from Nintendo Life, out.